NASCAR just handed a YouTube star with 5 million fans the most public rejection in motorsport history, and his response left the entire garage speechless. What really happened inside that race car at Rockingham that made NASCAR say no? Why did Kyle Busch, his own teammate, publicly humiliate him before he even turned a lap? And what did Richard Childress, one of the most powerful men in NASCAR, actually say behind closed doors? The answer to that last one will completely change how you see this whole story. And in Cletus Mcfarland's own words, "I am like the least experienced NASCAR driver in history, trying to get opportunities to do some of the biggest things in NASCAR history." Story doesn't start at Rockingham. It doesn't start at Daytona either. It starts with a phone call that almost nobody talks about. Ty Dillon, who races in the Cup Series for Childress Racing and is the grandson of Richard Childress himself, reached out to Cletus roughly a year ago after noticing his content blowing up on social media. Dillon wanted to know one simple thing: what were Cletus's goals? And Cletus was straight about it. He loved super speedways. His dream was to one day race in the Daytona 500. Dillon took that conversation back to his grandfather at RCR. But Richard Childress didn't just hand over a car. He had one condition. Dillon told Cletus that they would only want to do this if he stayed original to who he is. That they didn't want the deal to change what makes Cletus fun. If they weren't having fun with the whole project, they'd be failing. That condition says a lot about how RCR was approaching this. They weren't looking for a polished corporate spokesperson. They wanted the real thing. The deal was officially announced in early March 2026. Cletus signed on to run 3 O'Reilly Auto Parts Series races per season over a 2-year period with Richard Childress Racing. The moment it went public, the NASCAR world erupted. The criticism didn't come from random fans on the internet. It came from inside the garage itself, from people who have spent their entire lives in NASCAR. Kyle Petty, a NASCAR legend, came out and said that internet personalities like Mcfarland don't belong on the racetrack with professional stock car drivers. Strong words. But then came an even more uncomfortable voice. Kyle Busch, a 2-time Cup Series champion who actually drives for RCR in the Cup Series, meaning he was technically his own teammate. A session at Phoenix, Busch went right at him. "I don't know how many races he's run. Denny Hamlin ran 10,000 before he got here, right? So I don't know if Cletus has run 10 or not, but there's definitely a need to having ample experience." And then came the line that really stung. "My son's probably run more races than he has, and he's 10 years old." Freddie Kraft, who spots for Bubba Wallace in the Cup Series, was even louder. He posted on social media, "Crash at the Rockingham truck test. Crash lap 5 of your only truck start. Good enough for me. Approved." Analyst Tommy Baldwin compared the whole situation to a 7th grader deciding to skip straight to college. You have to go through the steps: race ARCA, learn car control, drive late models. Cletus heard every single word, and before his debut, he didn't hide from it. In a conversation with reporter Bob Pockrass, Cletus said that all these guys can say whatever they want. But if Richard Childress called any of them and offered them a ride, every single one of them would have taken it too. He made it clear, if NASCAR is letting him do it, he's in. Saturday, April 4th, 2026, Rockingham Speedway. Cletus was pulling double duty, an ARCA Menards Series East race in the morning and his O'Reilly Series debut later in the day. The ARCA race was a different story entirely. He kept the car clean throughout and scored his first ever top 5 finish in any NASCAR division, crossing the line in 4th place After the race, he got emotional. He dedicated the finish to his late friend Greg Biffle, the former NASCAR driver who tragically lost his life, along with his wife and 2 children, in a plane crash in December 2025. Cletus said he just went out there and turned left for Greg Biffle, and that he thought Biffle would be happy he didn't do anything stupid. Then came the O'Reilly race. That was a completely different story. Cletus started 35th out of 38 cars in the number 33 Richard Childress Racing Chevrolet. On just the 4th lap, he found himself in a 3-wide situation. Going into turn 1, slid sideways and barely saved it. He lost a huge chunk of ground to the feet immediately. What followed was a race full of multiple spins and half spins, a caution flag he caused, a pit road speeding penalty, and a final finishing position of 31st, 6 laps behind winner William Sawalich. Almost died 10 times. But then he pointed out something that mattered. Did I ruin anyone's day other than my own? I did not. He completed 244 of the 250 laps and brought the car home in one piece. Then came the moment Freddie Kraft specifically highlighted. During the race, Cletus's in-car audio was broadcast, and at one point, he was having a conversation with his spotter where he basically didn't know what inside meant. Kraft called that racing 101. Even Mark Martin, who had been broadly supportive of Cletus, weighed in with a blunt take. He said the best thing about Cletus is his interviews, a witty way of saying his on-track performance still has a long way to go. Martin agreed that the right place for Cletus right now is in ARCA, what RCR said behind closed doors. The team's response after Rockingham wasn't a glowing celebration. It was cautious and measured. Danny Lawrence, RCR's Vice President of O'Reilly Series Operations, told Motorsport.com, "It's a big step. This is a hard racetrack, and he did really good a couple of times where he could have spun the car out in front of everybody, and didn't. But then Lawrence got real. There were a lot of things they wanted to see happen that didn't happen. They never got to do a live pit stop. When Cletus got sideways early, the team immediately went into conservation mode. Just keep rolling and don't push it too hard." The development session that NASCAR needed to see never really took place the way it was supposed to. And then Lawrence said something that made a lot of headlines. "I would not be surprised if NASCAR didn't want us to run another race before we got to Daytona and Talladega. Everything happened so fast there that we all want to be prepared when we do take him there." Not everyone piled on, though. Justin Allgaier, the 2024 O'Reilly Series champion, stood up for Cletus after the race. "I thought Cletus did a great job. He did a really good job staying out of the way every time we lapped him. I know that today had to be really tough on him, especially with some of the social media stuff that he's had going against him the past few weeks. So I'm proud of him." Ty Dillon also stood by the project. He said he thinks NASCAR should be proud of how Cletus represented himself, that he was respectful to the leaders and didn't mess up anybody's day. The support was real, but so was the warning from inside RCR. Lawrence wasn't sure NASCAR had seen enough. He was right. Tuesday, April 7th, 2026. The Racing Development Officer John Probst delivered the verdict on the official NASCAR Hauler Talk podcast. "We're all huge Cletus fans. We all watch his videos and are certainly very appreciative of everything he's done in our sport and will continue to do in our sport. He is approved right now for O'Reilly Series short tracks, which means he's good for all of ARCA, all of Truck, and then O'Reilly up through the short tracks. We like to see more out of Cletus in the short tracks, so we're not saying no. But there is more that we would like to see out of Cletus before we would approve him for Talladega." That is the full picture of where things stood. Approved for everything except one thing: O'Reilly Superspeedways. No Talladega. No Daytona. Not yet. Dale Earnhardt Jr. backed the decision on his Dale Jr. Download podcast and didn't hold back. "I saw enough to not approve him for Daytona or Talladega in O'Reilly Series." Earnhardt had watched the YouTube video from the truck test with Nice Motorsports, the O'Reilly test with RCR, and then the race itself. In all 3 of those, he busted his A. Now, he didn't hit anything except for the truck. He did wall the truck off turn 2. His concern wasn't effort, it was control. In all 3 instances, Cletus lost control of the car. Earnhardt suggested 1, 2, maybe 3 more events before even having that conversation again. The business reality sitting underneath all of this is impossible to ignore. When Cletus ran at Rockingham, the CW drew a 0.65 rating and 1.165 million viewers for that O'Reilly race, up 12% in rating and 11% in total viewers compared to the same race the previous year. Through the first 7 races of the 2026 season, the series was averaging 1.282 million viewers, up 3.6% year over year. As John Probst himself put it, if it was just about clicks and dollars, we had an easy decision with Cletus. But it's not about that. It's just making sure that we're doing right for him as a driver and as a human being. NASCAR needed him, but they weren't going to rush him into Talladega. 3 minutes after hanging up the phone, Cletus hit record. No script, no edits, 1 take. He wanted his fans to hear it from him before anyone else could shape the story. Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted you to hear it from me first that I have been denied by NASCAR to run Talladega in my O'Reilly's car. He didn't spin it. He didn't blame anyone. He laid out exactly what happened. They did not see enough. Granted, it was a pretty hectic race. I tried to pass someone 3 wide on the 3rd lap. Spun out a few more times. Didn't crash or crash anybody, but still, it was pretty hectic. He acknowledged everything. He called the timeline itself part of the problem. This opportunity landed about 2 months ago. I've only been racing NASCAR for 1 year. It was never my mission to go out and climb into an O'Reilly car and get to the top as fast as I can. But we figured we'd try. And we didn't get approved. Then came the line that summed up the entire moment. A little bit of a kick in the nuts, but I just gotta get out there in other cars and do as much learning as possible. And then hopefully, I'll get to run Daytona and Talladega next year. No meltdown, no entitlement, no suggestion that NASCAR owed him anything. And before signing off, he made a promise to every fan watching. We will make it to Talladega in an O'Reilly's car one day. Mark my words. He also gave a bigger perspective. His 2 kids asleep in the next room. His wife. His Freedom Factory in Bradenton, Florida. His employees. His friends. This NASCAR journey was one piece of a much larger life. And this rejection was, in his own words, just a little nick in that journey. The path forward is not complicated. ARCA at Kansas Speedway on April 18th. ARCA at Talladega on April 25th. He's still going to Dega, just not in the car he wanted. Truck Series races are also still on the schedule. Some not yet publicly announced. Nashville Superspeedway has been floated as a potential O'Reilly redemption race. A safer, more manageable track where he could demonstrate the improvement NASCAR needs to see. NASCAR's message was clear. Prove yourself on short tracks first, then earn the superspeedway. Probst confirmed the process is ongoing. We will progress him as fast as we can, but in a very meaningful way that doesn't get him in a bad situation. And through all of it, the shadow of Greg Biffle runs across everything Cletus does. The Be Like Biff tribute on his trucks. The 4th place ARCA finish dedicated to him at Rockingham. The shirt sleeves cut off in tribute at Daytona. Biffle was, as Cletus described him, an accidental mentor, someone who taught him how to be a stock car driver without either of them ever planning it that way. The real question hanging over all of this isn't whether NASCAR made the right call. It's whether a YouTuber, a guy who built his brand on Crown Victorias, mullets, and a racetrack called the Freedom Factory, can actually climb NASCAR's ladder the slow way, the hard way, the way it was designed to be climbed. NASCAR didn't close the door. They just told him exactly where the line is. and Cletus Mcfarland pointed straight at it. Want to follow every single step of this comeback, every ARCA race, every truck start, every moment NASCAR gets closer to saying yes. Hit that subscribe button right now, because this story is far from over. And smash the like button if you believe Cletus is going to make it to Talladega in that O'Reilly's car. Drop your take in the comments. Did NASCAR make the right call, or should they have just let him race? Every comment gets read.